topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Hey, good morning, South Florida, my home. Welcome to another Ask the Expert show where we bring you the top experts in the field of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. I got a letter about a week ago, and it's one of the reasons why we do a show like this. This is our 15th year with Ask the Experts. And I got a letter from a lady saying, you do a show on estate planning, and I am so surprised that no one, where all my friends are all retired, that there is a show like this. And she said, I've never written to a show before, but I wanted to thank you for your attorney, Andrew Rosenberg, and for bringing this show to our community. We're in a gated community in Delray Beach, and my friends and I all listen to this show. We are so glad we found it. I got to tell you, that's the whole reason we do this show. And good morning, attorney Andrew Rosenberg.
Hey, good morning, Steve-O, and good morning, everyone out there. I hope you're having a good second day of June.
Hey, I got to tell you, Andrew, we live here. You also are here in South Florida like us. And I'm out of Coral Springs where your office is. And we have so many retired people who live here in South Florida, whether it's Palm Beach County or Broward County or Dade County. And the area of law that you cover is so important. And sometimes we just kind of take it for granted. But your area of law, whether it's wills, whether it's trust, whether it's elder law, no matter what the case is, what you do is so important here in South Florida. I want to thank you for being part of this show.
Well, thanks, Steve. It's my pleasure. I really try to make sure people understand the importance of what I do and what the types of attorneys are that are out there that like me, what we do. It's really, really important. And unfortunately, what happens, Steve-O, is most people don't like to do this stuff. And I understand it. I mean, listen, who the hell wants to talk about a will or anything of that nature? You're facing mortality. I mean, no one wants to talk about when we pass away, but it's more than that, and that's what people need to understand. It's not. And when I do my workshops, I tell people all the time. I go, listen, I don't care if you have $10 million or you have $10 in your bank account. Everybody needs estate planning, and it's not just about wills. There's lots of other things. So a lot of times I tell them in my workshops and my clientele, I tell them, I go, listen, you got kids I got 2 kids, right? They're a little bit older now because I'm getting old. I'm now 57, almost 58. But when my kids went off to college, the first thing I had them do was I made them sign a durable power of attorney and a healthcare surrogate, because do they have money? No. Do I pay for all their college and grad school? Yes, my wife and I paid for all that crap. But God forbid something happened to them. One was down here at University of Miami. One was in George Washington University in DC. something happened to my son up there, Jason, in Washington, D.C., while he was in college, the doctors wouldn't talk to me. The financial institutions would not talk to me because they're 18 years of age. Now, does that mean that they're adults? Yes, it does. Does that mean they have a pot to piss in? Absolutely not. They have nothing. But estate planning is more than just the will. And that's what I'm trying to really educate everybody out there, is that it's not just about the will. It's very important, obviously, but there's more to estate planning than just the will.
You know, we do estate planning shows across the United States. And I got to tell you, every time somebody passes away, Andy, an example, Bernie Carrick, who many of you might not know who Bernie Carrick was, but he was one of the key figures um, in New York when the bombing happened. He was police commissioner, and he is just I mean, people respected him. He was only like 62 years old, and he passed away this weekend. First of all, I didn't even know he was sick, but you know, you never plan for anything. And sometimes you can think, you know, here's a guy who was the police commissioner, looked like he was in great shape, but you never know. And that's why the planning is so important, because you don't ever know.
No, you don't. And that's the whole point. I mean, I always use myself as the example, Steve, and we talked about it in earlier episodes. You know, I was 48 years old when I had a heart attack. And, you know, I didn't expect the heart attack. And I was lucky enough to survive the heart attack. But the point is that when I was at the hospital, I was very calm and cool because I knew everything was in place. And unfortunately, there are times when things happen in our lives and we're not planning, and we don't have things in place. And that's and it's true when you talk about the gentleman that passed away up in New York like that. You wonder, did they plan properly? We talked about Gene Hackman, who passed
Yes,
away not that long ago. He didn't plan properly, obviously, with what's going on with that whole mess. If you're familiar with the show Cheers, remember Cheers, the
yes,
TV show? There was two people
George
that
went.
passed. Yeah, George went. Two people passed. One of them, the more familiar gentleman, was George Wendt. He passed away. He was, I think, 77, so he was young. But
Yeah,
the question always is, whenever I hear something like that, I always wonder. I hope they had things put into place so that it's easy for
right.
the. It's not necessarily for you. God forbid something happens to you, you're gone. It's the family. It's making sure that the family doesn't have one more hurdle to face. They're facing the hurdle of you being no longer with us. But what about the hurdle of like gathering assets and distributing assets and dealing with all the debts and all that? Is that all taken care of? And that's what we talk about here. And Steve, in my workshops, um, about a year ago, when I was visiting with my son Jason, he just finished his first year. I'm very proud of him at Duke Law School. But when we were visiting, which is a great law school, by the way, when we
Yes,
were, yeah, when we were visiting a year ago,
one of the top law schools.
yeah, one of the top five. Yeah, it's a great school. I could have never gotten in there, but that's a whole nother story. But when we were visiting the law school to see if that's where he wanted to go, on my hotel doorstep that next morning from USA Today was an article, believe it or not, and it talked about how estate planning has gone downhill in people in regards, basically the number of people that have done estate planning has dwindled over the past 30, 40 years versus going up. And you know what? That's true. And I always ask the audience when I'm doing a workshop, why do we think that is? And people don't have all sorts of answers. They don't know. But I mean, I think it's because people don't like to face mortality. Number
Right.
one, people are procrastinators. They think that, oh, I can take care of it tomorrow. And then tomorrow comes and something happens and you haven't taken care of it. Another scenario is, I will tell you that the one time that it actually went up like crazy was when COVID happened.
COVID.
Because, Steve, think about it. You remember, obviously, thank God we're not going through that now, but you remember every night we'd see on the TV, on national news, you'd see the death toll just keep rising.
Yes.
And because of that, I think it stared everybody in their face, and they said, you know what? One of them could be us. And that's when people said, I better take care of my plan. And so that's the one time in my many years of practice that estate planning went crazy and it went up. And then, of course, once the COVID subsided and we got the vaccines and things started to get back to somewhat of a normal scenario, if you can say that anything's normal after COVID, I don't know. But once that happened, of course, people went back to the status quo of procrastinating and saying that I'll wait till tomorrow.
Yeah. And a lot of people think, oh, I'm in good shape, I'm healthy. There's a lot of people, but I got to tell you something. I got the second to me worst, second worst COVID is, you might laugh at this, I-95 and the Sawgrass area.
Yeah.
If you're driving on either I-95 or the Sawgrass, oh my, there's so many people who get killed in auto accidents.
Especially I-95. It's like a death
Yes,
trap. Oh
yes,
my goodness. Yes. I mean, so if you think about it, guys, if you're listening out there, whenever you're driving, there's a risk. I
yes.
mean, we all have risks. And, I have a very sad story I could tell you that happened to someone. I don't know them, but I know of them. But this just gives you an example of what we're talking about today, Steve. Unfortunately, there was a married couple, and the husband got diagnosed with glioblastoma, which is a horrible cancer diagnosis for the brain. And he unfortunately fought valiantly for 15 months and passed away. And the survivor was the wife. He was 61, I believe, and the wife survived with 2 kids. I think they were around 24 and 27 years of age, 2 daughters. And the mom and the 2 daughters went away on vacation right after that to China, try and bond, obviously, after a horrible scenario where they lost their husband and father. And they came back, and the wife had a massive stroke or heart attack. Wow. Within a week after the death of her husband. And I heard very recently that they had to unfortunately pull her off life support. And so within a matter of about 2 to 3 weeks, these 2 young daughters lost both a husband or a father and a mother unexpectedly. Or you could say maybe one was somewhat expected because he had a horrible cancer diagnosis. The other one was completely unexpected. And then, my thoughts go out to the entire family, but my thoughts go right to the point. I hope they had insurance. I hope they had things put in place and took care of these young adults. But that's just a quick example. I have another example, Steve-O. My landscaper called me a year ago in October, left a voicemail message for me saying, hey, Andy, I want to meet with you to discuss wills and trusts and estate planning. I called him back that night, left a message, called him back again the next day, left messages, didn't hear back, called the next day after that. His wife picked up. He unexpectedly dropped dead of a heart attack between the 2 days before and when I tried to get a hold of him. So the point is, guys, you got to be thankful for every day that we live here on earth, and we can't take life for granted. It's very easy, but you need to plan for the family. It's not for you, it's for your family. Take care of the family and the aftermath of it. It's just, when I was sitting in that emergency room with my heart attack, I looked at my wife and I said, you know what, Deb? I said, if it's my time, it's my time. Everything's in order. I said, you'll be fine. And she shook me, Steve. She literally shook me at the time and said, I'm not ready for you. We got 2 young kids. I'm not ready to be a single parent. So that's what happened. And now fast forward almost 9, 10 years from now, my wife looked at me the other day and she said, if something happened, so be it. The kids are older. I'm okay.
Tell people what you did with Cleveland Clinic too, that a lot of people don't know that they can do.
Yeah. So listen, when I do estate plan for my clients, there's a lot of things I tell my clients, but one of the things I do say is, listen, people always ask, what do I do with these documents? And so I tell people, listen, normally, if you have a primary care doctor that you go to, or I live in Weston, right? My office is in Coral Springs, but I live in Weston, so my hospital is Cleveland Clinic.
Right.
Or if you have a hospital that you're going to go to, I recommend that you tell your primary doctor and the hospital you go to that you give them a copy of your healthcare surrogate, your living will, and your HIPAA documents. And the reason I do that is because if something were to happen, my doctor will have them on file so they know who's in charge and who can be contacted. And if I'm in the hospital and I get rushed to Cleveland Clinic, they could look up my name and they store the documents and they're able to pull it up. I'll give you a prime example, Steve-O. If you remember a month or so ago, I had horrible kidney stones and they unfortunately were not passing. And I actually, it became serious. I had to get rushed to the hospital and my kidneys were backing up and it was an emergency surgery situation. I walked into the emergency room at Cleveland Clinic. I was in so much pain, keeling over, screaming, cussing, doing everything you're not supposed to do, but that's what I was doing. And they wanted me to sit down and fill out paperwork. And I looked them right in the eye and I said, are you freaking kidding me? I said, you get me into the back and give me some pain meds. I'm done. And they said, well, we need you to fill this out. We need to know what's going on. I said, listen, you have my healthcare surrogate, my living will, all that, my HIPAA, it's all on file. Here's my name. Take me back. My wife's coming in about 5 minutes behind me. She's parking the car. And that's what they did. And so they were able to pull it right up. And then they could have my wife deal with that mess while I was being treated.
I guarantee you many people have been through that before, where they want you to fill out papers while you're sitting there in severe pain.
Yeah, it's horrible. It's horrible. So the point is, if you have a primary care doctor or you have a hospital that you would probably go to, you need to contact your primary care doctor and give them a copy so they have it in their system of your healthcare surrogate, living will, and HIPAA document. And if you have a hospital, you need to contact the hospital that you're going to go to if something were to happen and ask them, will you keep a copy of this in your system so that if something were to happen, I were rushed there, you guys have it so that you know who could be in charge. Not all hospitals will do that. Most will. And that's what I did. And it played out in my situation, completely played out exactly how it was supposed to.
We just got a text from Palm Beach Gardens wanting to know when your next seminar is.
Let's see here. I have a seminar coming up this coming Wednesday. So Wednesday the 4th. It's going to be at Total Wine and Plantation, which is 801 South University Drive, and it's Suite 100, and it's going to be at 5:30. So this Wednesday the 4th at 5:30. If you want to attend, call the office, speak to Alejandro. The office number is 954-755-7803 if you want to attend. We are looking into expanding and doing a workshop up in the Boca Raton area. So that's being planned and it may have already been scheduled. So you can call the office and see if you want to come to this one coming up or see when we might have one in the Boca area, because I know that we were talking about expanding because it's been asked by many people. So we're looking into expanding it to that area as well.
Somebody just wrote, can you explain the ladybird?
Oh, sure. I mean, that's a whole show that you and I could do, Steve. And we should
and
do a
it's
whole
actually
show
from Boca.
Yeah, we should
Ruth
do a
and
whole show
Boca.
on that. Yeah, but real
Yep.
quick, so there's only 5 states right now in the country that allow something called a ladybird deed. We happen to be obviously one of the 5 states. The other 4 states I don't want to mention right now, but there are 5 states, and one of them is not New York. Got it, guys? New York and New Jersey is not one of the states that do ladybirds. But what a ladybird deed does is it's a way to potentially, if it's done correctly, avoid probate court. So you know how we're always trying to avoid probate. So let me give you an example. So let's use my wife and I, Debbie. So Debbie and I own our house in Weston. So what I would do is potentially do a new deed, transferring the property from my wife and I, and do a new deed, transferring the property to my wife and I. So no different. So my wife and I still own it. If I were to die, my wife has full control. She could sell it. She could do whatever she wants with it. However, when she dies, it's going to go through probate court if we didn't do anything. But with a ladybird deed, we transfer the property from my wife and I, and we did a new deed transferring to my wife and I. And then we have something called the remainder interest, if any. And we named, in our example, we named both my kids. So when both Debbie and I pass away, both my kids, Jason and Allie, would get it outright without any probate court. So it's a wonderful vehicle to use. But like I tell everybody that's listening out there, it really depends on your facts and circumstances. There's many situations where a ladybird deed directly to the kids does not make sense. And there's concerns. I tell about a story, give you an example, Steve-O. I know we're running short on time, but I'll talk about this for a minute. I know someone that did a ladybird deed for a widow, and they transferred it from the widow, did a new deed to the widow, and then the remainder interest, if any, went to the 4 kids that she had. And then the widow passed away, and unfortunately, when she passed away, one of the 4 kids was in the middle of being sued. And guess what was part of the lawsuit? That 25% ownership. So there's lots of reasons not to do it directly to the kids. There are other ways to plan for that. For you to understand that, you need to probably call and sit down with me or come to one of my workshops so I can explain it further. But the ladybird deed is a great vehicle. I do it all the time, Steve-O. And it's a way of transferring your real estate in a certain way where you still have full control of the real estate while you're alive. You could sell it. You can do whatever you want. You don't need your kids involved. And then when you pass away, it will go to whoever you name on the deed.
Does that have anything to do with Lady Bird Johnson?
No, it's funny. But that's what people think. And the second state of the 5 is Texas, which is where Lady Bird Johnson is from. But the answer is no. Believe it or not, it was done by a professor. It was created by a professor. And I think it was created down here in Florida. And he used as the example, I think it was Lady Bird Johnson was just the name of the hypothetical, and that's how it became a ladybird deed. And so it has nothing to do with Lady Bird Johnson, but everyone thinks it does. So that's why when people guess what states, they say Texas because she's from Texas, and they're correct.
Well, the bad news is we've come to the end of the show. The good news is you're going to be back here in 2 weeks, same time on 2 weeks from today. And maybe we'll talk about this ladybird, because if it takes a whole show, the only thing with Andy and I is we get off on tangents. They all have a lot to do with the estate planning, so you're not going to miss out on anything. But Andy will be back with us in 2 weeks. Andy, give everybody your phone number and your website again for all those listening on radio.
Sure. Phone number to get a hold of the office is 954-755-7803. And the website is Rosenberg Law Firm, and that's ROSENBERG, RosenbergLawFirm.net, not .com, RosenbergLawFirm.net.
We're going to be like your wife. You better stay healthy. We need you, bro.
God willing. I do the best I can. I can only control so much, my friend.
Okay, buddy. Have a good week. Attorney Andy Rosenberg, he'll be back with us in 2 weeks. That's going to do it for us today. We will be back again with you next Monday with more Ask the Experts.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.